So, the first lighting toy is going to be using robot framework in the performance testing by Mika Koski from Q Factory. So, hit it.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Mika Koski and I come from a company named Q Factory. And thank you for voting me or my story about how to use robot framework in performance testing. To be honest, I'm not a test automation specialist. I'm a project manager, and everything you are about to hear here is quick and dirty in terms of testing and test automation. But when people get desperate, they also will get quite creative, and this is a story about how to misuse or abuse robot framework for performance testing. The project we did this. It was a public sector project which was based on customized software product. And we knew that there will be 2,000 users and they have a mandatory deadline. The task the users were supposed to do, it is something which is done because of regulatory reasons, and it's not in anybody's top priority. So we were expecting that people will do this task in the last minute, and we were expecting quite a peak of concurrent users during the last day or during the last 2 hours of the last day. The system we were about to test, it had it has complex architecture. It's kind of slowish under load, and it will be quite complicated. Its UI will be quite complicated because the UI elements were dynamic and they were built and environment dependent. And also we had quite complex form logic. So decision made here has huge impact things which were displayed below. Why robot framework? Our goal was to test the performance of this suspicious system under load and make sure that response times were reasonable. No timeouts, no error 500, etc., etc. We also wanted to make sure that we know what is the maximum number of concurrent users and set limit in order to prevent this thing. Because there was mandatory deadline, everybody must submit the form before deadline, and if we fail as a service provider, then newspapers will write about it. Why we used robot framework? We had 2 tools, robot framework and JMeter in use. We have already implemented functional test scripts by using robot framework. Our implementation capability, meaning I had very good colleagues in robot framework wise, but our capabilities doing complex JMeter stuff was very limited. Also, the system we were about to test, it required, for example, HTML parsing, etc., complex authentication, and we were not able to implement that by using JMeter. So this is what we did. We created a number of servers, and we put Babot there, and we executed about 10 threads each. And then we created load model by creating different sets of test scripts. And those load unit servers, they sent requests to system, and we were not interested in the responses as long as we didn't get fails. And then we had this data collection unit, which basically sent the same requests or the same functional tests to the system, and then we collected the performance data. There are somewhere about here, there is a small proxy we used, which is our own technology, or it's open source technology, but anyway, so this is very simplified image, but basically this is what we did. And how we estimated the amount of concurrent users was done in a way that we put all these servers to log what they are doing, keywords, test cases, etc., etc. And after that, we calculated how many concurrent users we were able to create. And with 15 servers and 10 threads each, we created kind of, and of course there were think times present. We set this Selenium speed to make sense. And we estimated or calculated that by using this approach, we were able to create about 100 concurrent users. The 10 thread limit was our server capability limit. It couldn't handle more threads or processes without starting to fail and time out. The results and lessons learned. When we went live, the performance of the system was pretty much the same we kind of simulated here. And we didn't have any production problems. The lessons we learned from Robot Framework in performance testing was that if you have complex UI, Robot Framework and this approach can be used by executing functional tests in parallel. It can be used for performance testing if the number of concurrent users we are dealing with is relatively low, meaning 10 threads for each server, and the number of servers available for creating the load is high or unlimited. We had virtual servers, so it was like 5 minutes and we get a new server. So instantiation of server was not a problem. And also, this is if you are desperate and you don't have any other choice, you can use Robot Framework, but if you have other choices, for example, JMeter, you have capabilities, and your system is such that you can perform performance testing by sending requests in multiple threads, you can use that. But I want to thank you, the developers of Robot Framework, for making this kind of versatile and very stable platform for testing. So, 1 minute, any questions? Use, please.
And in spin of the virtual service that you generate, the spin of the AVS or something else that you have unlimited results from the load.
Sorry, I didn't.
The AVS, any cloud provider, do you get those virtual servers from?
No, it was in-house virtual servers.
But could you spin it up around the AVS?
I don't know.
Yes, you could.
Yeah, thank you.
How long did it take you to put this all together?
The test setup, you mean? It took 1 week or so. We had to do some testing about what is the maximum number of threads our machines were able to execute. That was the main thing to explore, so to speak. Okay,
All right.
time's up.
All right, thank you very much. So next one is going to be robot framework and AI, how to bring robot framework to the world of AI. Antti H.
Hear me?
Put this in your pocket.
Yep. Okay, we're done.
So, stage is yours.
Okay, first of all, thank you very much for your votes. I mean, I don't have any fancy kind of a presentation, and kind of purpose of my kind of lightning talk was that it's a kind of a sexy topic, and obviously thanks for the votes. I have my own votes here, so it's not up to me or my colleagues. So thank you all. And then this session has been very interesting because I've seen many colleagues from 10 years back and even almost 20 years back. So nice to meet old colleagues. And those colleagues may remember me from Nokia time when I was kind of a program manager in test automation field, where having like 40 developers, 10 products, and etc. But today I kind of provide some hints what's coming in 5 years or 3 years or next year. Because test automator, I mean, person who automates kind of test cases, that job will vanish. I work quite a lot on kind of RPA cases, so it's interesting kind of automating people's work, but that will eventually happen also to us. And when you kind of hearing kind of a presentation in the morning, I kind of thought that how many of you have like in your test automation system or set up a project more than 1,000 keywords? Some, what about over 500? Yeah. Below 100. Okay, you are not all voting, but anyway. Risto was here, not telling which project, but in that there are kind of some 8,000 test cases, kind of web application. And kind of 9 keywords cover like 80% of all test cases. Just 9 keywords. And when you're heading to kind of artificial intelligence and how you use test automation there, it's really kind of a key. You cannot use any PDD approach and having like 1,000 or even 50,000 keywords, but you need to have kind of a simplicity in place. So that kind of when we are talking about kind of artificial intelligence, so is there someone studied that topic? Couple, that's good, because if you look at kind of what was it? Anyway, kind of AIchallenge.org, they kind of, was it like $5 million of different prizes regarding what type of implementation. If you look at those kind of implementation, problem is there that there are kind of test engineers or test automation engineers missing. They are building kind of a stack of computers and simulating brains, which is totally stupid, if you ask me. So some ideas how to kind of bring robot framework to this arena is basically, you guys, you are needed there, because they don't know what testing is and what is kind of a test automation and the skills you have there. So it's really kind of a topic that's in there. Then one more question, this is last question. So how many of you are using kind of computer vision or OCR? Just some? Oh, quite a few. Because it's kind of a key thing. So Selenium is good for kind of a QWeb stuff, but really the future is that when we are kind of building general AI and robots which are like human, I mean, the key thing is the computer vision. So it can recognize kind of text, patterns, images, etc. And you can do that already with robot framework and some Tesseract type of QVision libraries with your kind of application testing. Next step is to have just some robot and have camera on top of that and control that. And hopefully kind of using also robot operating system, ROS, which is a kind of a Python implementation. So those are kind of things that you could already kind of integrate to your work. When talking about kind of artificial intelligence, so it depends who you ask. So there are kind of basic, sorry, kind of, for example, there are simple robots which are kind of something, some people think they are kind of AI stuff. Then there are neural networks and kind of trying to simulate how brains work. But anyway, they are kind of OCR neural networks, and it's just one component of the total system. So basically when you are developing that type of system, you need to have kind of a small brains or centralized computer. And then the brains itself is kind of internet. So why on earth kind of have everything within stack of computers when you can fetch all needed information from internet? So basically you should be able to, or you should implement features like can search using Google, or use kind of YouTube, kind of if I want to chase oil in a car. I mean, you could check the kind of instructions how to do that. Of course, we are not there even close, but there are things that you guys can work in kind of in 5 or 10 years. Because they are kind of, let's say, automated test, or how would I put it? Automated exploratory testers coming. So basically it's kind of, that means that there's no any work for test automators. So of course there's a need for developing system, but anyway, it's for where you come from, or where you go from. And it's really about kind of developing better automation systems. I had plenty of things in my mind what to talk, but I still have 2 minutes, and I have kind of 4 drinks. So, who would like to ask something and pick drinks? 250 left. No question. Please come here.
So when you did build only with 8 keywords, where did you hide the complexity? Because there must be somewhere the complexity.
Yeah, because it's in Python. If we have like it's all keywords are implemented kind of in Python libraries, and when you do test automation, it's basically the same as what you would do manually. So if you have mobile device or some sub application or web application, what do you do when you do manually? You just click, click, click and type. So that type of keywords. Next question. 1 minute left. Next one gets 2.
Darn.
3. Yeah. No. Okay, that's about it. Thank you very much, and please check what's. Oh,
How long do you think it takes for AI to take over our jobs? Is it like 5 years, 10 years, 20 years?
it depends on if you stay in kind of implementing keywords. It's within 5 years. Okay, I told this already like 10 years ago, and still it haven't happened. So, but focus on kind of test automation system development. Your drinks. Thank you, that was all.
All right, thank you very much. Next one is the Bring Robot Framework to the US. And next one is from pull request to the pairing. And the last one is test management deep integration of robot frameworks to TM with the keyword DIV testing in TM. So please come here that we get this thing rolling. And there's next one is editor plugin for IntelliJ IDEA.
Okay, just. All right. So my name is Andrei. I am co-founder of small consulting company called Smart Design. What we do, we are providing development and test automation services for our customers. And one of our projects that we started a few years ago was test automation based on the robot framework that we done for one of our customers in the United States. And at the time when we started our project, we realized that the tooling support for robot was not quite yet mature, at least at that time. So, one of the primary IDE which has been used by our customers was IntelliJ IDEA, and we ended up with developing our own version of IntelliJ IDEA plugin for robot. And here I would like just highlight some of the features that we were able to do. So the first one is a complete syntax highlight for all the keywords and libraries which are used in test cases, and keyword documentation. Once you press, it depends on your keyboard layout. If you are looking for function documentation, then you can see what is the documentation for the specific keyword under cursor. The other feature was a keyword explorer. Once you have your test suite, you have keyword libraries. It is able to show up all the keywords there. You can search by documentation and so on. Standard features like keyword auto-completion. Once you hit Control-Tab, you can see all the options among the keywords available, which starts with the word that you have just typed. And one of the features that has been requested by our customer was zero configuration installation. So once people check out their sources from Git repository or whatever else source control tree, we wanted to start quickly, so we made a feature which was automatically configured all the Python environment required for specific test suite based on the requirements file, like requirements.txt, which just lists all the libraries and packages required for specific test suite. So here is a complete list of the features that we were able to implement. Includes syntax highlights, some code completion, some of the refactoring, code inspections, and so on. And to make all these things working, there are not that much requirements. You just need to have Python 2.79 installed. It works with the latest IDEA version, which I believe is 2017.3. Community edition is good enough. And you need to have a PCharm plugin installed, which is also free. So last but not the least was the debugger feature. So we were able to implement full-featured debugger for robot test cases for IntelliJ IDEA plugin. So once you set up a breakpoint in test case or in keyword implementation, you can step through different instructions. You can see all the keyword stack. You can see all the variables and their values. So it lifts up and makes the test case development with robot quite comfortable, almost productive as you do with conventional languages like Python or Java or whatever else. Well, that's probably it. I had a really short talk. These are all highlights. So if you have questions, you can drop us a note using this mail.
So I'm a little confused about the IntelliJ part of all of this. I use PyCharm, and I have a robot framework plugin for PyCharm.
Yes.
But I continually get warnings that you better not upgrade your PyCharm because it's not compatible with the robot framework plugin. So I haven't used it much, but this sounds wonderful.
Yeah. Which version of PyCharm plugin you are using?
Not the latest, because it gives me this warning about don't use the latest because it'll disable my robot framework stuff.
Well, actually, the plugin works on top of a PyCharm. So I may need to check out the specific versions of a PyCharm and the robot version, which works together. So I can give you that information offline.
But I'm particularly interested in your virtual environment management, because I do a lot of that kind of manually, and that having a tool to help with that would be really nice.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
We'll talk.
Yeah, sure.
And what about other ideas? Don't you think, for example, to contribute some, core part of your plugin, then everybody can like?
The thing here, we were considering different ideas. We were considering Eclipse, but we found out that the API, the internal API for IDEs is completely different. So once we implemented something for IntelliJ IDEA, it would be very hard to port, at least from scratch, to Eclipse or whatever else it is. So it would be like almost like re-implement something. So we had limited resources, and IntelliJ was just the idea of choice for our customers, and we only had resources to do that.
And what about like maybe some architecture map or some like tips? Because I mean, like community is big, maybe there is like some problem that you already face, and if you will public it in a documentation, then somebody maybe catch up and implement it like for Eclipse, for Atom.
Yeah, so right now we are just thinking what to do next with that plugins, because we haven't published it yet and put into the open source. We developed it using some of our spare resources, and one of the purposes of this talk is to see if it's going to attract some interest from the community, right? So if it's going to be a viable option, if we try to make, for example, commercial product out of it, or we can just open source it and try to provide support to different customers in case we needed some specific features on top of that plugin. So we are kind of exploring different opportunities at this point. So it's a question, what do we do next?
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Next one is running a physical test robot with robot framework. Timo Sturel.
Hello everybody. So my name is Timo Sturel and I come from Eficode. And the thing I'm going to share with you is something you could probably utilize yourself as well. A thing we did already a few years ago, but there are a few problems due to which you might know about this thing. We have a video about it, but it's not in YouTube, but in Vimeo. Might be more difficult to find. There's a blog post about it, but it's in Finnish. And there is also an open source library for robot framework, but for some reason, our own person who is maintaining the page in the robotframework.org has not added that to the page yet. But I think it will be coming there soon. Is it now there? Okay, it's now there. That's great. All right. And the video is coming up soon. There is some technical difficulties first, but no problem. It's only half a minute, and you will see what it's about. But anyway, one of our customers had a problem a few years ago. They were testing payment terminals, and manual testing was heavy, and they wanted to automate it. And there was two challenges in the automation. One was that because payment terminals are highly secure devices, there is no debug APIs or such there. So you can kind of access the device directly. So the only option is to use some kind of mechanical testing for the device itself. And well, there the challenge was that the devices that were sold in the market cost like 100K a piece. Pretty expensive, I would say. So we took the challenge that to build an expensive device to testing these terminals. And so we put together a CNC miller, Raspberry Pi, and then our own 3D printed finger there, for which we later on added also this touch screen end so that we can use it also on the touch screen. So at first it was working only with this physical terminal. And the thing is now that, so all the parts cost together like 1K. So it's working with robot framework running on a laptop, which was not shown there. And the library is open sourced. So now if you want to find it, you can go to robotframework.org, or if you want to Google for it, so just write EFI code and CNC. So like command and conquer, or in this case, computerized numerical control. So you can find it. You can find the video, you can find the CNC library, and you can find the blog post if you understand Finnish. All right. Yeah, but that's the thing. So I hope you have some use for this library. Thank you, that was all. If you have any questions, I might try to answer those, but as I didn't implement that thing myself, I don't know all the details. Maybe Tatu knows even better than I do. First question over there. Maybe Tatu, you can come up here so you can answer those.
It's not a question actually. I'm testing card reader terminals. I'm testing payment service, payment platform. And actually I wrote a sweet test case that goes all over the card reader to the platform and back. But I still had that problem because I have to be there, entering pins, putting the credit card. And actually my automation wasn't automated because of that. So I just wanted to say that you made my day. I will probably look at that to have the very same implemented at my company. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right, any other questions? So, let's continue.
All right,
thank you, Timo. All right, so next one is going to be integrate robot framework with the test management tool like TestLink. So, yes. So,
Hello, I'm Evert Huibe. I'm working for a Dutch company called Exxon, and we're making electronics for the broadcast industry, for TV studios and OB vans. This is just a short lightning talk, because, and I also encountered that more people are struggling with it, how to combine a robot framework with a test management tool, for instance, TestLink. In the past, I made manual tests, and now for a few years we make automated tests, but it's difficult how to integrate those tools and how to store your results over time. There is an API for TestLink, and it's easy to use, but the problem is how to sync those tooling. And yeah, I want to ask some people, and tomorrow I'm available during the sprints to maybe start up a new project about how to do that and discuss about TestLink, but maybe also another test management tool and how to sync those things. So tomorrow I'm available. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? So let's continue.
All right.
Thank you, Timo. All right, so next one is going to be integrate robot framework with the test management tool like TestLink. So, yes. So,
Hello, I'm Evert Huibe. I'm working for a Dutch company called Exxon, and we're making electronics for the broadcast industry, for TV studios and OB vans. This is just a short lightning talk, because, and I also encountered that more people are struggling with it, how to combine a robot framework with a test management tool, for instance, TestLink. In the past, I made manual tests, and now for a few years we make automated tests, but it's difficult how to integrate those tools and how to store your results over time. There is an API for TestLink, and it's easy to use, but the problem is how to sync those tooling. And yeah, I want to ask some people, and tomorrow I'm available during the sprints to maybe start up a new project about how to do that and discuss about TestLink, but maybe also another test management tool and how to sync those things. So tomorrow I'm available. Thank you.
There's by the way, a souvenir. Thank you. And you can leave it there. All right, so next one is Nathan, bring robot framework to the US. Please, Nathan.
Oh, great. Can you guys hear me? Is this on? Test 1, 2, 0 Celsius, 1 Celsius, it's cold. All the way here from California, so we're going to talk about a great topic on everyone's mind. I think it's immigration, that's right, bringing robot framework to America. So just a brief background on who we are. I'm a co-founder of a company called Autonomic. We're based in Silicon Valley, where, again, it's much warmer. And we're looking to build tomorrow's software factories, and it's based around a three-pronged thesis. One, the business needs more, and IT is becoming very important. And to address this, people are starting to apply manufacturing processes to it, like DevOps. Two is the reality that QA and a lot of other support functions often are a checkmark, Not always getting the most funding, not always the most love and attention, and apparently heads thrown at the problem doesn't always solve the problem. And so if you want to read what a QA can do at its worst, go read the Bloomberg article on Intel. And now we move to point 3, which is that, at least where I live, AI and natural language processing are getting to a point where they're very robust and very economic. So with that in mind, we decided it was time to intelligently automate software testing so the companies focus on what their core value is, right? How they're delivering value through that software factory. And so as we were beginning to explore other communities where automation was a key part of it, and test automation, we ran across Robot Framework. And naturally, we wanted to get involved. And then we found out we had to be in Finland. A little problematic. So, to solve this, on Halloween last year, I hopped on a plane. I believe it was the very familiar Aeroflot, and came to meet Pekka to discuss bringing Robot Framework to America. And so with that in mind, we really want to discuss how we can bring that community forward, and since there's so many users there, how to start engaging so that what's happening in this room today becomes something that can happen in the US, that can happen globally. Right? So what is the value of an international community? I don't really need to speak more on community today because we heard so many great presentations, but it's pretty simple. Industry-wide adoption drives improvement, drives support, which increases demand not only for you, but an increased demand for quality and a higher standard for everyone to hold themselves by. Right? So this is great. We're going to bring it to America. Awesome. Except we need participation. A community is not us bringing it to America. So how are we going to engage with you guys? We need to know how you want to engage. For those of you with American counterparts and the 3 of you who are also jet lagged, we want to know how everyone wants to engage. Do you want to meet us in person? Do you want to go on to online events, or do you want to stay on Slack? Right? We need to know what you care about when we're thinking about bringing it to America. So do you care about education? Do you care about developing the framework further? Do you care about support? Do you want to network? Where's your head at, right? And then finally, we want to know how you want to participate, right? This is community building at the core of it. And so do you want to donate resources, office spaces? Do you want to sponsor it? How do you want to engage? Do you want to, again, develop the community? Or do you want to invite your friends? So many of you have American counterparts. That would be nice to meet some of them. So what are our plans, right? Q1, we need to get this up and running. We're going to have to get in America, it's called a 501c3, it means a nonprofit foundation. And we're going to have a meetup. We're going to do a meetup in the Bay. Let's start slow. Let's see where the interest is. Q2, let's begin seeing how many of you have American counterparts and how many of the American counterparts that are using it we find to sponsor the entity. Q3, we look to establish local groups. Q4, we improve the education, we grow the community. And in 2019, could we hear a RoboCon US? Possibly. So that's sort of the paradigm we're going in. It's, again, evidence-based. We want to make sure that we're taking the right incremental steps so that we really engage with the community when we're bringing it there. And that's the sum of it. So what do we need from you guys? Right, there has to be an ask. 1, we need to know where you and your counterparts are. So for the 3 of you in America, I think I've talked to you. For you guys, again, where are your counterparts that would like to engage? How would they like to engage? 2, there's a survey so that we can collect data and know how people want to engage. And 3, invite your friends. Inviting your friends is a big part of this. We want to bring it to America. You have American friends. It's a good way that we can engage the community. So, survey links at the top. There's my personal cell phone number. I am American. Do not call me at 2 in the morning. 1 in the morning is okay. And my email. Great.
Thank you, Nathan.
Well, thank you.
All right, and yes, there's one question. Does anybody have a display port to HDMI? So display port to HDMI. There's, okay. Is it a display port, not mini display port? Cool. So that's that. All right, so from pull request to pairing, Maaret Pyhäjärvi, stage is yours.
Now I have voice, great. So I wasn't intending to do a lightning talk. I got into a chat with the gentleman here in the front row, the fellow who did a talk on communities, and he kind of told me that, I should, and as quite often I do hear from people who don't know me yet, because I'm a woman, there needs to be a woman on this stage, so I'm now the representative woman. However, I kind of wanted to mention that there's two things that you should maybe know about me, in addition to the fact that I'm a woman. Yesterday, Kent Beck tweeted that he loves the book that I wrote, and Kent Beck is kind of a famous. And the other thing that I kind of wanted to mention, that this is number 353 talk that I deliver while I've been delivering public talks. So I'm definitely not here because I'm a woman. I just get that a lot. And I wanted to say this out loud to encourage the other women who feel that they are asked here because of their gender. They are actually asked here because they're awesome. It's just that people don't know how to ask people to come here. So I kind of wanted to talk about something that is a bit people-oriented. We've been talking a lot around RoboFramework, and I have my concerns around RoboFramework. I'm a big fan of automation, but I'm kind of more towards let's let the code show school. And I wanted to talk around the idea of when we work with code, it's actually people, even, whether we hide it or not, it's people who work with it. And I wanted to tell you first a story from my work. So I work for F-Secure, so I'm a lead quality engineer there, and there's all sorts of things that are happening. I just checked the number. We run 10,000 environments up and down every day for our test automation system. So virtualization and, all these kind of things is something that we do a lot. But all of that kind of rolls around this fact that, people do changes and then they're asking other people to look at their changes. And last week, one of my colleagues came to me and he was, visibly upset. And I was like, the other developer, I can't get this. I'm so infuriated. I'm like, what happened? A pull request. What's in that pull request? A complete rewrite. He rewrote the whole thing. And I, of course, curious person that I am, I go and check this pull request, and I go and check, how bad does it look, the text that people write. There's absolute politeness. There's, comments, maybe you want to fix this, and maybe you want to fix that. But there's also this sense of not having enough energy to go in that style into all of the things that need to happen for that complete rewrite. And again, quite usually for me nowadays at work, I use my opportunity to remind people that, like my computer says, I'd rather be more programming, or I'd rather be pairing. And I'm a big believer in the idea that when developers actually like each other, they don't do pull requests, they don't do code reviews. What they do is called pairing. So when you actually want to solve problems together and you care about the way the other person feels, you go and work together with that person. You don't make that person go through the little slap in the face, where somebody, my colleague here, just today made the comment that it's actually so nice when Peke is slapping me on the face about RoboFramework. That happens regularly. I would actually like that never to happen to me. So again, we're building a community here, so maybe that's one way of extending it. So I wanted to share another story, a story around approval tests, which is an open source tool that I'm a big fan of. Actually, I'm very, very big fan of. And I've been a big fan enough to participate in recent developments of it, but I've also started with it by testing it. This is the project's head developer statement about what did I do when I started testing it. Again, coming in as an exploratory tester, I wanted to, just get to learn it. I pretty much broke it in 1.5 hours, and he went to a Cucumber podcast to talk about it. And nowadays, of course, teaches exploratory testing to other developers so that they know how to break things in the way that exploratory testers do. But all of this kind of was just our lead-in to the idea that the way approval tests has always been built as an open source project. It's a very different and very specific style. The head developer, Llewellyn Falco, he pairs with everyone. There's no pull requests or infrequent pull requests in his project. It's been developed in multiple languages. The whole list is not there because I can't even follow. There might be some week and a new language emerges. Just because someone says, I would like to use this idea, I would like to use this, but this is my environment. So basically, he just set up pairing. He usually is in US, sometimes traveling around the world. So how do you actually pair with people around the world? Apparently quite easily. So you just open Skype and you start working. A lot of times when they're working, or we're working on an environment that is not kind of like our home language, it's the other developer's computer. And you use your words to control that. So this whole remote pairing, a lot of it actually is based on this idea called strong style pairing, where the idea is that if you have the idea, you give the keyboard to the other person. So usually the more knowledgeable person is not on the keyboard, but it's actually keeping track of the higher level ideas. So I just wanted to, introduce this idea that maybe one of the ways we can grow our community is to make people feel less bad. This is a tweet that I just saw today. I follow a lot of awesome technical women. I'm very much into a polyglot programming community, basically all languages. Nowadays, I just counted, I've programmed on 13 languages so far. So I don't care whether it's Python or C++ or whatever, it's just a language. But what I do care about, a lot, is that the future needs to be one where my daughter and other people's daughters have a place in how the world is set up. And unless we change the way we communicate, unless we make people feel that they can be included without getting the slap or feeling like they first need to find the braveness to face all this feedback, I don't think the future is going to be looking much brighter. So that's kind of what I wanted to say today on, I believe, very much, not just in pairing, but mobbing. Getting the best out of us into the work we're doing as it's happening instead of 5 minutes or 5 hours or 5 days later. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, thank you. My name is René. I'm from Germany. I'm working with a consulting company. We do testing stuff and only testing stuff, something like this, test automation, test management, consulting, and so on, blah, blah. And the point is, the question was the whole day here in the room, like, how do you solve the problem of the requirements? So first, I just want to announce what is the problem with the requirements, because the most people who just do developing websites and say, hey, fuck off the requirements, I'm just writing my code and then I do the automation, and if the automation passes, everything's fine. Yeah? And the requirement passed the task board and it's done and everything okay, and it's only done if the tests are passed. So why the requirements? There are some areas of developing which needs a trace from the requirements to the test specification, review of requirements, review of specification, test execution, documentation of all this stuff before you can do only 1 foot into the market. For example, healthcare, automotive. Yeah, they have something like functional safety and so on. And the problem is, if you don't link your test automation specification and the test results to the requirement, and you can't document the full trace of your project, you have to rewrite everything on paper or Excel or Word or whatever test management you have, review it, sign with blood that this what you wrote there is the same what you automated, and that you personally are in charge that this test is executed exactly like written in this test management. So the end result is you do everything twice. Yeah? You write the test there, you describe it in native language and so on, and then you go to the nerd in the basement and say, hey, please automate this stuff. And use some fancy framework like robot framework or whatever, yeah, Ranorex doesn't care. And you automate it and say, yeah, it works. And of course, you don't have to re-execute everything every time. But the next step and the end is a manual again. You have to read the automation code and then you have to sign, yeah, it's passed. And the problem is the most test management software also give a shit on what automation they do or what's the content of the automation. Yeah, the most test management software do just, you have a test case and test management, described it like a plain text or something like this, and you have a link to one test in the automation tool. And I think this is not enough. So if you have the requirement, you do some test specification and you redo it in the test automation tool. And I think this is a problem, because this is also one of the entrance problem of automating not enough. So the idea of Robot Framework is to catch up at the business users, yeah, give them a domain-specific language to say, okay, write your test in your language. And I do the automation stuff, and me as an automation guy, I don't care what the business logic is on top. I see the GUI and I give you a feature for every GUI element you want to click and for every motor or servo you want to drive or something like this. And you can use this stuff without writing any line of code. And the idea what we had, I think also 13, 14 years ago, was also the keyword-driven testing is a nice idea. So the word of keyword-driven testing was not there yet. It was something called like action words or test steps or whatever. We called them interactions, like it's a defined interaction with the test object. But nearly it's keyword-driven testing. And we integrated this in our test management system. So like you design the test in the test management for manual testing and for automated testing. Because keyword-driven testing is also a very, very good thing for manual testing. And this is maybe something what the community should also think about. I know I have these possibilities to do something like manual in front of a step, or you have a dialog API and the dialog pops up and you say pass or fail or something like this. You can do like a semi-automated test. But a pure manual test is also very important to have it short and simple. One test step, execute. Next test step, execute, not have a long list of test specification. That's also good with keyword-driven testing. And I think where the future should be is you write the test in the test specification, in the test management, and generate out something like a Robot Framework script. We do this with our tool. If you're interested in, you can come to me. I would show it, but I have no DisplayPort adapter. So I have a running environment, requirements link with Jira, importing the requirements, attach the test, design the test with multiple layers of keywords, like nested keywords in our system. Then you have one handover layer, for example, like maybe the library layer to Robot Framework, or you have user keywords which are imported from Robot Framework to the system, and this is the handover layer. And when we say, okay, I want to have this, and this test, you say export, and then the test management system is generating Robot Framework test cases. And then you can use all the capabilities Robot Framework has, like execution handling, like exception handling, making teardown, making setup, the parbot stuff, and so on. You can participate of all these features, and you have the good documentations and Jenkins integrations. But the trace and the trace backwards also implemented. So you have a run of Robot Framework, then you just import the result XML. You have all this documented in the test management, and then it's versioned automatically and you have to trace. So if you have any questions, I can show you here on the PC. I think this could also be maybe something you can think about in the open source community. So, okay, this for me it's like it's business stuff. We sell this product, but I think products like TestLink as a not really bright and nice open source test management, but it is, and it's cheap and it doesn't cost anything. Maybe there could be something like a right integration to TestLink. Yeah, something like, you know, the Atom or Visual Studio Code is also done in HTML5, yeah? So writing Robot Framework test cases with syntax highlighting and so on could be also done on a web page. And maybe this is an idea to write your robot test cases in the test management and just export them and execute them and roll them back. So that's it from my side. If you want to discuss this stuff, I have just one question to you. Does anybody have heard about the ISO 29119? Please raise your hand. the ISO standard, ISO IEC IEEE 29119, 4 persons? 5, okay. Who knows something about the ISTQB, International Software Testing Qualification Board? Okay, a few more. Out of this ISTQB stuff, there's written, some guys write some norms or standards, and they wrote the ISO. And I think 2016, the ISO 29119-5 has been released, which standardized or describes keyword-driven testing. It's not like a standard you have to follow this stuff. It's something like a best practice of how to use keyword-driven testing. And maybe if some customer asks you, how do you automate stuff, you can tell him, our automation solve or is done compared or like solving the ISO 29119, because nearly the stuff what Robot Framework did is already also written now in this ISO standard, and there are maybe some good best practices. If somebody has access to this ISO standard, just maybe have a look to it. Okay, thank you. Any questions, or later at the beer? Later. Have a nice evening, bye.
Thank you. All right, so it's about the closing words, but I welcome to the arrangers, so please, Jani, Peke, Antti. All right, so we are behind of this whole thing here, and of course, without you participators, people who gave really excellent talks, and also our sponsors, this thing wouldn't happen. So from my behalf, big thanks to you all and applause. And also big thanks to Tapaus, who is actually making this organization here. It's a little bit bluff that we are doing everything. So they are the people behind the scenes.